Hey guys. Um, so water fasting, I'm going to be starting more water fasting than anything. And when I say water fasting, I don't think enough people specify that it's not just straight water. Um, 72-hour fast for me are about the minimum I go now. So when I specify water fasting, I'm talking literally about water fasting with electrolytes, potassium, and sodium. I don't want to induce anything, via refeeding syndrome. You can go about 48 hours without feeding sodium and potassium, and that's perfectly fine. But anything past 48 hours, you really start to pull electrolytes and minerals and stuff from your body via bone, um, stuff your body can't keep up with. Your body likes to hold on to sodium and potassium for a given amount of time, and it can do these things very naturally. So, to say that you straight water fast for 48 hours would be completely fine, but anything past that, I don't really support that. I have a video on refeeding syndrome that talks about what can happen if you don't use sodium and potassium in your water. So, um, today we start the 72-hour 3-day water fast, and it will end so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, about the time I go to work, Central Time, which would be like 3:30. Um, so that's going to happen more often. A lot of people are interested in that and doing more of them. I may go longer than that. One of my inspirations for this, not only is just something I like to do to kind of cleanse things and kind of reset and get back on track, is if you don't know, there's a guy called the Fasting Fat Man, and he's fasted for like 117 or 118 days now so far, which is amazing that this guy has lost the amount of weight that he's lost. So if you haven't checked out the Fasting Fat Man, please do. The guy's really an inspiration. Got a really positive attitude, never talks negatively, and really puts a lot of effort into commenting whenever he comments back to you. So his inspiration was his child. I was listening to his story, and basically, I think it may not be exactly correct, but what ended up happening is his child started to scoot away from him, and his child like ended up under an end table or behind a couch or something like that, and he was thinking that basically, what would I do if my child got hurt? And I'm so overweight that I wouldn't even be able to save my child, so I want to be here for my child in the process of doing that. So he said, you know what, I got to get this weight off. I got to be able to be here for my family and my child and stuff like that. So um, he set out on a journey, and he's like the fasting superhero right now. I mean, the guy really is a great guy with a great attitude. So some of my inspiration comes from him. Plus, you guys know that I like to do water fasts anyway. And again, I specify when I say water fast, I mean adding electrolytes to my water. It doesn't have to be a specified amount as long as you're adding some throughout the day. Little bits at a time can be done too. Some people like to measure things out and say, this is how much I like to have by the end of the day. Other people say, you know what, as long as you're putting some in throughout the day, you'll be fine. So I'm one of those ones that like to do it as I water fast, not necessarily setting out a predetermined amount and saying this is what I'm going to consume every day. I like to go based off body cues, signaling, and stuff like that. If I'm feeling extra hungry, then I'll add a little bit more sodium to my water. If I'm cramping up and stuff like that, I'll add a little bit more potassium to my water. But they also can work hand in hand with each other for the same symptoms. It's just simply what I found works for me. To move forward from there, um, comments. I made some videos lately where I've disclosed information up front about this is what I'm doing, these are the reasons I'm doing it, and I've given my thoughts on, not thoughts, but my answers on why I'm doing it. I know it's social media, but people still choose to give their 100% professional spot on opinion and still tell you anyway, regardless of what your disclaimer is. That stuff gets kind of old. The other day, or yesterday, when I posted the video on the low carb, the taco soup recipe that my mom wanted me to make. It's a family recipe. It's been in the family for a long time, so We just simplified it a little bit more, added some better options to it, but didn't take out everything that's not keto. So I simply specified in the beginning of the video that this is the reasons why. I know everything's not completely clean, but this is how my mother and father want it right now. My mother has lost 38 pounds by mainly eating clean with very minimal additives and stuff in her diet in the last 2 months. But again, no matter what the disclaimer is at the beginning of the video, me simply specifying that I don't really need anybody's opinion outside of that on the stuff I already stated. You know, I stated that I know there's not very good ingredients in the maltodextrin or in the ranch seasoning, such as maltodextrin and the trace sugar and stuff that's in the taco seasoning. But you still find people that no matter what you say, they decide they want to give their opinion on it anyway. So I wanted to specify in the beginning of that video, that's exactly what I said, was I understand these things aren't necessarily perfectly clean. I disclaimed that this is a low carb recipe, this is not a keto recipe, and that it can be made completely keto if you really want it to, but that wasn't simply good enough. People still decided that they wanted to leave their sassy, professional, know-it-all opinion on top of it, which really wasn't needed to begin with. So I wanted to just touch on that real quick, that I did disclaim that it was low carb, it was not keto. So yesterday, talking to health coach Kate on the Facebook Messenger, she gave me some tips on how to bump up the algorithm and stuff like that and cue in on certain videos. She had mentioned that I wasn't really tagging my videos, and if you tag your videos and put the keywords in your tags when you load your videos, you get a better chance of people clicking on them, and it kind of bumps you up in the algorithm. So I went through and I found a lot of my key videos that I put a lot of information and stuff in, and I went back and tagged those videos. I keyed in on some more main words, I guess Q words or whatever in the title. That some of the stuff that you put in your tagline needs to be what you put in your title as well. It helps the video get found better. She shared a video with me on a guy that basically teaches social media and how to engage your crowd, more of like a pinpoint style, how to get your video on that recommended list that's up on the front. Your taglines, as well as your description, as well as your heading, have to have something in common. The words need to be somewhat similar. So I went through and I fixed a lot of that. So I'm waiting to see over the next week what happens. That was really spot on information. So I do see some areas that I need to work on when it comes to that, to learn how to engage the mass audience better. So I just kind of did some little research last night after I let it sit for about 4 or 5 hours and everything upload after the changes that I made. And then sure enough, I went to Google and I typed in the search engine there. I typed in the search engine there, like say 2010 Honda Accord VTC actuator. I already had the top video in the world when it came to that, the most viewed video in the world when I came to that. But now that she's helped me simply make those little changes, it's showing up as #1 on Google as well. And regardless if people think the YouTube is the main search engine for this stuff, it's really not. Whenever I watched the video that she shared with me about the actual guy that he's like a professional, he travels and teaches stuff about social media and things like that, that was one of the main things that he said, is like, you may get 25 to 30% of your crowd that comes from your search on YouTube, but you could get 35 to 40% of the rest of your crowd when it comes to a Google search engine, that they will recommend your video on YouTube. And sure enough, when I changed everything up about 2 o'clock this morning, I jumped on there real quick and I typed in the Google search engine that specific title to that video, and it's for a 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012 car, but I used to title it just 2009. But now that I added those other years in there and I changed up some of the keywords and the tags in that title, I can go on Google now and it's rated the #1 or right next to the #1 video. So In that aspect, search wise, that did work. Even though it was already the #1 video, who knows how far I could have been if I would have learned to do that right in the beginning. That video alone every month generates about $20 to $25 worth of revenue by itself. Just ads popping up and people watching the video all the way through. So by me changing that up, who knows what'll happen now. Now that I've learned that algorithm and the different taglines on the bottom, if you're editing from a phone, your tags that you put in your tag section when you upload your video, they should be specified, like, let's say the keto taco soup on the bottom, or low carb taco soup. On the bottom in the tag section, you'll put keto taco soup or low carb taco soup, and you'll put a comma, and then you'll put your next word and you'll put a comma, and the commas when you do your tags on your phone are what separate your taglines. That's what stopped them from running together. So that helped to learn how to tag things appropriately underneath the videos. And then I noticed about a dozen of my videos that have been watched all over the world very often. They're some of my top videos. I did not even have them selected in the right categories. So whenever you go to your category of what your video fits in, I noticed that if I go to the section that you click on the category, it might say people and blogs, or it might say how to, one might say science and technology. There are some of the keto videos that got viewed a lot that were under science and technology. Well, that's not what that is. That is even some of my automotive videos were selected under science and technology. That's not what that is at all. That would be under automotive, and I didn't even have them selected appropriate. So all I can do is think now that what if I would have learned to do this right from the beginning, those videos that were ranked #1 in the world may have been a lot further than what they are if I would have learned to do it the right way to begin with. So I'm very thankful for her. I'm very thankful for the Fasting Fat Man for his inspiration. And let's just see what happens from there. We go from there and see how things turn out. See if the algorithm bumps up. Another thing that I was jumping around looking at different people's videos on how to grow on YouTube was when you do collaborations with people, you notice that your name gets thrown around more. People get exposed to your channel more. And if you do more common shout outs, you get your name out there more, and then people will recommend you more because you're helping them, and their turnaround, they're helping you in turn. Plus the the tag I just did, where I did a 6-tag keto question just from Nona Grace alone. I gained like 24 subscribers off of that just by mentioning her name and tagging her in that. I noticed that the subscriber rating started bumping up quite a bit over a few days. And then you can go into your analytics for your video and you can look at exactly how much percent's being generated and pushed towards your channel. So when you go into your analytics, you can see that the majority of your crowd comes from the United States, or the majority of your videos are recommended videos because there's a certain percent that sits next to it and says YouTube recommended video or recommended video for audience, something to that nature. So that's how you know that your video has been getting recommended by YouTube in a percent basis. But then also, hi Keto Michelle. But then also, if you look at your analytics, you can see how much of your video has been viewed by a search engine. So some of those videos, even though they didn't show up as #1 or whatever on Google before, it still shows that 27% of how that video was viewed was based off of a search engine like Google. So learning these things, learning how to engage your crowd, the analytics and stuff, reading it, and then selecting the right categories and putting the right tags may be the answer to all this. That may be the answer to boosting and moving up, and then learning to suck on some of that pride and stuff sometimes because somebody else doesn't do it exactly like you do, and doing these tags, doing these shout outs and stuff like that may help somebody's channel quite a bit. So what I'm learning is what I'm trying to share with you guys as well. So in your video, if you take, for instance, um, let's see, the sleep video that I did, it was pretty good. What's going on, Freddie? So in the description, um, you can put, like, say for instance, the sleep video. She showed me how to use something called TubeBuddy, T-U-B-E Buddy. And there's an app for your phone that will help you generate some information and how to engage your crowd better. But then there's also one for your computer that's probably a little bit more thorough. And on TubeBuddy, you can go on there and you can type in like a heading for, let's say for instance, your the video that you wanna name it, and you can title it, let's see, micro sleep, whatever I had it before, and you can generate how often that thing's been viewed. How many times have people looked for that particular title? And it'll say like 33%, and it'll show low, really, really low on your rating that it's viewed for. But if you look on there and you see something to the extent of why is sleep important, you can see that it's been generated for 44% viewed. So you already know that title that you had before was weak. And you can look to see, out of a basis on a scale, what key title is searched for the most. So I typed in, why is sleep important? And then you want to throw some of your taglines in there as well. So why is sleep important? / micro sleep / sleep, sleep deficiency or sleep deprived. So not only are you engaging your crowd from the most viewed title, but you're adding something in at the end that other people may look for, micro sleep, sleep deprivation, something like that, and you're double teaming it now. So learning that and then going on there and trying to figure out exactly how to title that was a big help for me. So I went back, I redid my title to it, and I hope so. The thing is, when we engage with each other sometimes, this is another thing that I wanted to talk about in the comments section, and we're not very clear what our intent is. When some of us talk to each other on here, when we're networking with other people and stuff like that, sometimes I don't have a filter. Sometimes I just say whatever I want to say because it's my first reaction, when I really should not say anything at all for a while and maybe come back to it. Some people have replied to my videos and stuff lately, and it almost seems like they're very off-putting when they say stuff. Like they haven't learned how to engage with somebody correctly because of the area that they may live in, the country they may live in, where they're from, how their family and stuff was raised. For instance, my buddy's sister, she's Asian, and she can speak English, but she doesn't know how to speak English very well. The first time she saw me after, like, let's just say 2 years, instead of saying, wow, you look better, excuse me, instead of saying, wow, you look better, she says, oh, you're not as fat anymore. She doesn't know how to talk. Where she's from, they just talk, they just say stuff or whatever. But when we talk to each other, it almost comes off the same way sometimes. People have left comments lately that say, oh man, that video was kind of, like the cowboy. That video made me want to fall asleep or whatever. Like, I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, that's kind of off-putting. I don't know how to respond to that. Or the other day, Sherry said, good video, but it kind of sucked at the same time. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. What do you mean sucked? Either it's a good video or did it suck? Well, I'm just not into that kind of thing. Did you really have to go to the extent of leaving all that? Why couldn't you just say great video and move on? You see what I'm saying? Sometimes the way we communicate with each other is not necessarily that great. And some people may say, you know what, in my country where I'm from, people aren't so sensitive. People aren't so thin-skinned. They just say whatever they want to say and they move on about it. Well, where I'm from,
you kind of got to watch what you say to people because they get super offended by it. And I just don't necessarily know all the time whether or not we're communicating based off an offensive way or literally the way we were raised, or that's just how we are. So when I respond to you guys sometimes in the comment section, it may be because I took that comment as something that was not very nice. Or maybe I was raised differently, or maybe there is a proper way to communicate and it's just not coming out right on your end. Or maybe I just took it the complete wrong way. I don't know. I think that's something that we all as human beings should work on. But again, I'm not one to tell people what to do. There's a big networking thing here that I think a lot of people need to work on. And it's just not the creator of the video alone. Like, maybe you can use me one day, but we had a communication error several times and it fell apart, and now I'm not interested in being used by somebody and helping because of that. It's a number of things that play into networking and communication and growing your channel and growing yourself as a person. Some people don't want to change. Some people don't want to network with somebody else. I don't know. I think that the more and more I experience life, the more I do things in life, the more I realize people are either just set in their way and they don't want to change, or they really are wanting to be a better person. They just don't know how to do it, and they're scared to do it, or they're scared to change, or maybe they just don't care. I don't know what it is anymore. Lately, the way people have been treating each other on social media and in life in general makes me sometimes want to step away from being some kind of a small public figure to people, because we're so with each other. We want to just attack, and act like we know more than the next person. And I've grown out of that stage now. When I first started on YouTube, that's the kind of person I was. I wanted people to listen to what I had to say. I wanted people to know that I had years and years and years of experience, and I would add that into my comments to say, well, you think that's how it is, but I've been doing this for 12 years, and this is actually how it is. This is how I figured it out to be 100% true. And now I'm like, that doesn't even matter. Leave all that junk out of it. Network, communicate, say what you have to say, and move on. Now I'm like, I don't really care to give my credentials to somebody and then defend myself in the process of doing it. Now I'm just like, okay, cool, dude, whatever, it's not a big deal. If that's what you believe, sure, go ahead, do your thing. But I think that's a big part of the communication, networking failure and stuff on YouTube in general is we're trying to one-up each other. We're trying to prove something that the next person hasn't proved. And when we should try to maybe build them up, say, hey, great video on that sleep thing. I'm going to do a video, I'm going to add a little bit more to it to emphasize what you've already put out. That would be a good idea to do things. Teamwork. Okay, great video. You've given me a basis to go off of. I'm going to add a few more things to it. And I'm going to even mention your video in the process of doing it because you've given me that inspiration. And now I'm going to add, just emphasize everything that you said. Plus, I've got a few more things that I have to say. Maybe a few more tricks and tips that can help people. And I appreciate you giving me that inspiration. But no, we don't do that. We go to that person's channel and we say, yeah, you forgot a lot of stuff and I think you could have done a better job. And then next thing you know, 2 weeks later, that person's creating a video that was just like yours, except now they're adding that stuff in there. So it's, I don't know. I think a lot of success and failure is basically how we handle ourselves and how we work with other people and how we communicate with other people. And that's where a big failure comes from, is instead of building people up, we want to tear them down. The other, on the low carb video, somebody replied with the low carb taco recipe. I'm going to sit down right here. I hope I don't get myself super wet by sitting down. The ground's wet right now. So on that low carb taco soup recipe, I had disclaimed in the beginning of it, this is a low carb recipe. This is not perfect. It's not clean. I recognize the ingredients. I even pointed out the ingredients, and I even specified why it wasn't necessarily keto and why it wasn't that clean, but it could fit in low carb. And then I went as far as saying, look, I understand that this is what's in these products. My parents are doing great right now doing this. They're getting healthier, and they're making a big improvement. I don't want to really hear anybody's rhetoric on what I've already specified. I've already given you that as a sense of satisfaction by saying this is not the best, but my parents are doing this and they're feeling great off of it and they're losing weight off of it, and it's just amazing that they can get to that point where they want to make that change. People still replied with, oh, beans aren't keto, and this is how many carbs are per serving, and that's why you should make your own seasonings and your own dressings and all this other stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I feel like no matter what you do, you're always going to have that person that wants to still correct you, even though you've given them the satisfaction ahead of time of saying, I know this is not that great, and this is why it's not that great, and I've already said the same exact thing that you said, but now you get somebody that comes along, oh, you could have made your taco seasoning at home and your ranch seasoning at home. Guys, I've made that stuff on camera for you before. I've done that for you. I've showed you how to make that stuff clean at home. This is where I talk about the communication failure falls apart. And this is where I talk about us not... It wasn't the carnivores that did it. It was a person that does keto that I respect, and they're very smart. They're a very intelligent person. But they still came back, even as smart as they are and as intelligent as they are, they still did that anyway. And I'm like, man, do people just not learn? Do people just not know how to network with each other properly? Do people just not know how to say, you know what, he did say exactly what I would say in that situation, so maybe I shouldn't reiterate it again because he's already said it. He already knows. But they choose to leave those comments and just rip each other down and tear each other down little by little by little because misery loves company, or we think that we have to be better than the next person. Guys, I can't tell you enough right now. I've made so many mistakes in my life. I've made so many mistakes in my life, and I've made those choices by telling people, oh, I've done this 15 years. I've lost 140 pounds. I've done all this. Move on from that. Share positive things with people. Maybe make some suggestions if they're asking for the suggestions on how to make things better. But outside of that, support them. That's what they need. They need your support. They need you to be there as a friend. They need you to be there as a subscriber, as a networking communication person that's just a human being that wants to be there for other people. I've grown in my journey over the last 3 years of being on social media and realized that you cannot get anywhere by doing that. And if you do, you start fitting in that crowd that nobody wants to deal with. Listen to what's being said with a person. Communicate with them via the words that they're saying, not what you think they're saying. Maybe you have to sometimes go back and watch the video again, and then you'll see and realize the message that's coming across the screen from the person that's putting out the message is exactly what you didn't interpret it as, but you were wanting to correct it as. Because they're already saying exactly what you're saying sometimes, but we choose to rip and tear apart people like you're peeling layers off of an onion. You just want to peel back all those layers and just tear it apart as much as you possibly can. Sometimes that's not the answer. Sometimes that takes people further back in life and makes them want to do the wrong things and not want to continue doing what they're doing because we don't see the true intent of what's going on. We always want to have this defensive, standoffish presence where we want to defend and attack and jump. And that's not what we need. We should be sitting there with some kind of guard, but kind of more passive than anything to say, let me listen to what this guy has to say. Let me listen to what this gal has to say. Maybe they'll say something today that I needed to hear that can help me with something, but I'm not wanting to do it because I'm already wanting to correct before there's even a reason to correct. Maybe that's the nurturing in us, the defensive mechanism that we have inside us that we need to pull down sometimes. Maybe we're too offensive sometimes, and maybe we're too defensive sometimes, and we should be more offensive in our approach with networking and communicating with people so we can help them grow and make them a better person, instead of trying to tear them down and showing them that they're not good enough, that their message is not good enough to you, that you did not actually hear what they had to say. You only assumed that you knew what they were going to say, and you didn't watch the video all the way through, but they covered it at the end of the video. They covered it in the middle of the video. We lack in communication so much that it's unreal, and I just want to put this message out to say today, take the extra time to figure out what they mean. If you don't know what they mean and you did not get the message from what they were putting out, go to the comment section of their video and ask them, hey, when you were talking about this, can you explain this a little bit better so I know what you're talking about? Instead of jumping right to, I want to prove you wrong, I want to be on the defensive. Ask them what they meant. Make them feel good about being able to explain themselves because you didn't understand something. Don't make it seem like you're going to give them the answer because you're any better. Talk to them. Let them know what you're thinking, but do it on my keto groups. I can't afford to offend people very easily because they'll go somewhere else. And I know my message is good, and eventually if I put in enough work, I can get to that person. I had a lady that fought me for 6 months straight. She would question every single thing that I said. She would not give me a break until one day she woke up and seen the scale was down 6 pounds overnight. And she said, you know what? I apologize. I should have asked more questions. I should have got to know you better. You're right. I just lost 6 pounds overnight. And then from then on, for 3 months straight, she lost a little bit every single week because she would question the information that I was giving her. Well, I should at least have this many carbs, or I should at least, no, it doesn't work that way. You got to give yourself time to heal, back away from this stuff for a little bit, and then add it back in slowly and figure out what your tolerance is. Well, she would fight me left and right. And then one day she woke up and she said, oh my God, I lost 6 pounds overnight. I said, well, that's called the whoosh effect. That's what we like to call it in the keto community. Your cells will just deplete all water. You'll drop all kinds of weight overnight. And then hopefully you'll be back on your path, losing little by little by little. And she did. Because she took the time to realize the last 6 months of fighting me wasn't necessary. And she came and she apologized. And she apologized on the public group in front of almost 5,000 people. She said, I'm so sorry for fighting you. I should have never done that. I should have just listened to your message more and gave it a chance before completely discrediting you. But Dr. Barry said this. Dr. Josh Axe said this. Well, this person said this. But she finally gave in and she listened to me instead of fighting me. And she networked with me. She communicated with me. She asked me for meal plans and stuff like that. Asked me what could be causing the problems and stuff in my life. And I started answering those questions accordingly. And she finally, at the end, put it all together like one big giant project. And she's been on her health journey ever since. Sometimes it takes one person that you can communicate with, that you can really get through to. And not fighting back and forth, but bouncing questions off each other. Bouncing ideas off each other and stuff like that, and eventually it just clicks, and all of a sudden you get it, because you're not fighting anymore. You're not trying to prove each other wrong. You're not trying to tell the other person they're not right for doing something. You just move on, you move through it, and you network and you communicate, and that's how you become friends. That's how you become a mini family in the keto community and stuff like that, and that's how you grow together. That's what I'd like to see with everybody, but we don't do that. Okay, I'm done beating that. I've said enough. But what I do want to say is thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for going through all this with me. I would ask of you right now when I end this video, please take an extra second to think about what you're saying to people. Please take an extra second to figure out, am I communicating my message clearly right now? Did I understand what that person's saying? Maybe I didn't. Maybe I need to go back and listen again. Maybe I've got so much going on in my life right now that my brain's clouded and I cannot communicate with people like I normally would because of everything that's going on in my life. And maybe I don't need to take my problems out on somebody else because my life is already difficult enough. And I think that's sometimes what people do. They project their stresses and the struggles that they're going on in their life on other people because they become innocent. Just please take an extra second to figure out, is this the message that I'm trying to get across right now? Is this the comment I'm trying to get across? What if other people see my comment that are my friends and they see how I've reacted to this, and then all of a sudden my communication level with them slows down? Do I really want that? Do I really want to jeopardize those relationships, that networking, that communication? Just take an extra second, guys. Thank you. I appreciate you. I'm going to go finish my laundry and then get to work. Have a great day.